Hi there, everybody. I'm Fred Thomas, and you are watching All Things Bike. And today we are speaking with Scott Havemeyer, the founder and event director for Ride for Angels. Scott, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Hey, well, give us the background on the organization, Angel Flight.
Okay. So Angel Flight was founded and started by a gentleman named Larry Camerlin, who founded it in 1996 and has been running it for the last 22 years since. Great organization that provides flights, organizes flights for children and adults of all ages to access medical care that they desperately need.
Right. So, and it's not emergency flights. It's
correct.
It's sort of flights that that are what, just too going to remote places or too far away.
Correct. It's people that would otherwise have difficulty accessing the medical care that they would need. So it's not emergency ambulances
right.
or helicopters. It's a group of volunteer pilots. They have over 1,000 volunteer pilots that they utilize with their own private planes. They donate their time and their expertise and their planes to fly these people to access the medical care that they need. So they have to be medically stable and able to get on and off the airplanes. They're small planes.
Sure, yeah.
And to access the medical care.
But I see. So it's the private pilots. They have the planes. They have the airport access and resources. And where is Angel Flight New England based?
So the headquarters is out of North Andover, Massachusetts, about 25 miles north of Boston. However, they fly throughout the whole northeast part of the U.S. They primarily, their range is primarily the 6 New England states, as well as New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania are their primary service areas. But they do have a lot. I looked up the numbers before coming up and speaking to you. So in the last 22 years that they've been in existence, 34% of the patients that they fly have come from Maine. So that's a huge percentage of their business that they've been helping out. It has actually been residents here in Maine.
And flying from Maine to Boston or Maine to New York or further afield.
Correct. It's a lot of it is, if somebody lives up in Bangor or Augusta and they need to get into Boston to see a specialist. And maybe they sitting in a car for 3 or 4 hours after they've had chemo or they feel sick is not. It's not something that is not only appealing, but it's not very doable. And or maybe they're a parent and they need to they can't uproot their life and leave their job and their family and move into Boston for treatment. And so this really, Angel Flight does a phenomenal job of decreasing those barriers and allowing people to access the best care available.
Right, that's fantastic. And how does one request a flight?
So you can go to their, you can go to their website. So it's angelflightne.org is there, and there's a button on the top to request a flight, and there's phone numbers, and they've got a couple of wonderful, very caring women that help coordinate all these flights, and that's really a main part of the job is coordinating the pilots and their planes to these patients and the appointments that they need to get to.
Wow.
And then on top of the pilots, you also have a large network of Earth Angels. There's over 200 of them that will pick somebody up from the airport, drive them to their medical treatment, and then either wait or somebody else will pick them up and then drive them back to the airport so they can get flown back home. So it's a lot of coordination, a lot of work to get that flight, but it's a very important service that they provide.
It's very valuable for anyone in that situation. Whereabouts does the Angel Flight organization get its support? I mean, is it individuals or sponsors? I mean, how does that whole?
So it's a variety of things. I mean, there are some government grants that they apply for. They are a nonprofit organization, so there's some of that. Then they have a handful of corporate partners. Hasbro is a huge corporate partner. JetBlue is a very large corporate partner, along with Cape Air. We'll talk a little more about that in a second. And so they have obviously sponsors, and then events like ours. They have a very large Evening of Angels gala that they put on at the Seaport down in Boston every November, which is one of their largest events to raise money for this charity. Right. And then there's events like mine and a handful of others that they obviously raise some money each year for as well.
Yeah. Well, how did you get connected to the organization? Was there an experience or?
Yeah. So it started for me where I'm a physical therapist by occupation, and Larry, the president and founder of Angel Flight, was a patient of mine. And there's a lot of, if you've ever been on the table in physical therapy before, there's a fair amount of time talking back and forth with your therapist. And
I'm headed in that direction, but yeah.
We can talk after.
Yeah,
so,
right.
And he told me a lot about the organization, told me a lot about what they do, and it was very, his passion for it was tremendous. He's an infectious personality, and I thought to myself, if I ever wanted to do some volunteer work, Angel Flight would be a great organization to do it for, and it's, they're located in my hometown, and so. So then I fast forward about 6 months, 8 months, and my aunt, who was like a mother figure to me growing up, lived on Nantucket. And she was diagnosed with terminal breast cancer. And I have twins at home, and they were born 6 weeks before she passed. And so I knew that we only had a very short time. So I called Larry and I said, Larry, I know this is a little bit of an unusual situation. It's not medical care for myself, but is there any way that you could fly me down to Nantucket? I can't really quickly and easily leave my wife with 6-week-old twins at home, but I'm trying to see my aunt before she passes. He said, of course, Scott, that's what we do. They do compassion flights as well. And so he himself flew me down. And like the next day, and unfortunately I didn't make it. She passed away that morning. But I was able to spend the day with my family that was there, and my cousins and my uncle who just lost his wife, and I was able to get home that night with back to my wife with my 6-week-old twins, and that was kind of the it for me. I said, what, I got to try to help out and do something. And so I looked into what they do, and they didn't have an event like this. They didn't have an event, a ride like this, or anything to raise money. So I said, well, let me see if I can try to do something, and that's sort of how it started.
Yeah, great. And you were riding your bike. I mean, you were.
Yeah, I've been a fairly avid cyclist since early 2000s, and 15 years, and not a racer, but just get out and an enthusiast, so to speak, and so. I'm looking around and they don't have an event. So I said, well, let me grab my brothers who both ride, and let me grab a few other people, and maybe we'll go out on a Sunday and we'll make a ride, and in that way I can try to raise some money for them. And that's how it started. And the first year I was stopping everybody on the street, riding past, hey, excuse me, come to my ride, and come help us out, and that's how it sort of started, and we went from there.
Yeah, but these kinds of events have become much more popular and accessible. People understand what they're about, than 10 years ago. So so it started about 8 years ago, or 10 years?
Yeah. So this year's event is September 9th, 2018, and this is the 8th year that we'll have done that.
And give us a sense of how many people turn up and where you ride and what the distances are.
So we've been trying to grow the event, and it's been great. I mean, we've been able to grow it each year. So we're up to, it's a small event, but I think people really enjoy the feel and the vibe of the event. It's a really sort of low key from a standpoint of there's a lot of camaraderie that goes on with it. Last year we had just over 300 riders, along with over 50 volunteers, and then vendors that are there, support staff that is there, the staff of Angel Flight is there. It starts and finishes in North Andover at the airport, at the Lawrence Municipal Airport, which is where Angel Flight's headquartered. And we have a very large field that we can park, and we set up tents and vendors. There are 4 length rides. So there's a 20-mile ride, a 45-mile ride, 65, so a metric, and then a full century ride.
I see.
All those rides go through the North Shore area of Massachusetts, the northeast part of Massachusetts.
Along the Merrimack River?
Along the Merrimack River, through Newburyport, down through Ipswich. The two longer rides go out onto Great Neck, which is in Ipswich, and come back through Boxford. The Century Ride does come up into New Hampshire and go up towards Exeter before it winds back down. So they get some beautiful roads that are up there as well.
Is it rain or shine?
It is rain or shine, So
that's fine.
It's a lot of organization to change that. So it's definitely rain or shine. But it's fully supported. We've got rest stops on every route. Each route's got, so the 20's got one rest stop, 45 has 2 rest stops, and so forth. Fully stocked with food and Gatorade and everything. We've got multiple SAG vehicles on the route following along. In case you have a mechanical problem and need help, or to get picked up, or something along those lines.
Yeah, well, no, that's great. I mean, that makes people feel a lot more comfortable if they're not accustomed to the distances. What about the fundraising aspect of it? I mean, how does it work for a rider?
So we've decided to do things a little bit different than some of these other rides. I mean, there are a lot of great causes and great rides out there that have, some small and some huge, of course, fundraising minimums. So we decided that, but there's also a lot of people that don't like asking for money, and they don't feel comfortable trying to raise money, but they'd love to be part of something like this.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's the route we've taken, and so we've stuck with that, and it's really been successful for us. We get a lot of compliments actually by people who aren't comfortable asking for money, saying, we're really glad you don't have a fundraising minimum because we want to be involved. So we don't have one. Now that doesn't mean it's not encouraged. We're trying to raise money for this great organization, and so certainly if people can raise some money, it's great. So what we've done is we've set up some benchmarks to try to incentivize people to do some fundraising. So those benchmarks are modest. It's $100, $500, and $1,000. And we go out and we get a bunch of raffle prizes that we give away to those people who have done some fundraising. And for the smaller amounts, it's, different bike swag and other stuff. And then it gets, there's some very nice giveaway prizes that we've given away at the upper levels. For the last 2 years, we've given away a weekend at the Van Trapp Family Lodge up in Stowe, Vermont.
I think I remember that. Yeah. Well, that's good. I mean, whatever it takes, people appreciate it, and it works out. Well, what about the stories that are created by this event? I mean, are there some stories that come to mind of people who've? Yeah,
I mean, to me, the ones that stand out are certainly the people that are pushing their own personal limits, that are maybe riding their first Century Ride. Every year we get a couple of people that come in and ride their first Century Ride, and one that. And I don't think Dennis will mind me telling this story, but so the one that comes to mind is a gentleman named Dennis Richardson who came to my ride. I think it was 4 years ago. Was there, and he was coming in, and people said, "Oh, he just finished his first Century. You need to go talk to him." And so the story goes that he was out of shape and unfortunately fairly overweight, and he got challenged by a personal family friend of his in the spring and said, "Hey, look, you need to quit smoking." He was a 3-pack a day smoker. He never rode a bike, so he ended up quitting smoking. His best friend, childhood friend, bought him a bike.
There you go.
And he started riding, and 4 or 5 months later, he does his first Century Ride at the Ride for Angels, and he came in and I handed him a beer, and he couldn't believe that he finished it, and his phone rings and he's talking, and it's his best friend, and he said, I can't believe I did it. And the best friend, the childhood friend, is Patrick Dempsey, who of course started the Dempsey Challenge so forth. And so Dennis now is on creating his own long rides and out there raising a lot of money for a lot of great charities himself. So
that's great.
Hopefully we inspired him a little bit too.
No, he certainly did. I mean, it's amazing how people sort of punch through their or break out of their comfort zones or psychic prisons, and all it takes is an event like this that sort of gives them the excuse to try it out.
Yep.
And off they go. And before you know it, they're just doing it every weekend.
Yeah, that's great.
Well, what about, are there volunteer opportunities? I mean,
Absolutely. So we need volunteers for lots of different positions, whether it's at the airport itself, whether it's SAG vehicles or some of the rest stops that we have. So people can go, whether they want to register or volunteer, they can go to our website, which is rideforangels.info, and there's opportunities there. You can sign up or send us an email if you've got questions and want to volunteer. We'd love to have you come down and help us out. So.
Oh, great. And let's just go over the actual timing of the event. It's September 9th.
Yep, it's Sunday, September 9th.
Sunday, yep.
Yep.
And, we register on your website.
You can definitely please register on the website. Certainly the earlier people register, it's easier for us for planning purposes, for event T-shirts and registration bags and all that stuff, planning wise. And so they definitely can go to that and register. And for more information, and you can download the routes to put up onto your Garmin and download your Garmin and so forth.
That's helpful. Excellent. All right, Scott. Well, look, thanks for coming down and explaining the organization and telling us about the ride, and we will see you there.
I appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to you coming back again.
Right on. All right, everybody. That was Scott Havermeyer, the event director and founder of Ride for Angels. You can learn more about the event at their website. Search it on Google. You'll find out all about where it's being held and the distances, and you can register. Thanks so much for watching. We will see you again soon.
All Things Bike with Fred Thomas is brought to you by Zentis, performance carbon wheels handmade in Austria for road and off-road riding. Zentis, next generation wheels. And Frame and Wheel eBay bike selling services. Time, space, cash. Pick 3. And AD Bikes, the modern face of Austro-Daimler cycling and the bike company of the future.